Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Kinda Opinionated Podcast. If you didn't know, I'm your host, Luke Sharon, and I'm kind of opinionated. Today we have a very special guest, Miss Kim Edmondson.
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 I have trouble saying it too.
She's currently running for Kootenai County Sheriff. Well, thank you for being on my podcast today.
Absolutely.
How's your day going?
It's going great. Sitting in front of you in a splint and
How did that happen?
I had to have some work done on my wrist, and age and lifestyle, I guess, is what happened.
In my script it says that's good to hear, but it's not really great to hear, but today we're going to be talking about a couple topics which I think are very relevant in our communities right now, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's get started. You were the only candidate that has actually been in duty in Kootenai County as someone in law enforcement. Do you think people should vote for you solely because you lived here the longest?
Well, I don't think that that's the only reason that they should vote for me, but I think that it does have a good purpose to it as far as knowing the community, serving in it, being a public servant to Kootenai County for so long. I think that there's a lot of value to that, and voters should pay attention to that fact.
Yeah. How do you respond to Mr. Grimm's slogan, "Keep it Idaho"?
Oh, well, I guess I know what he's talking about, but more than anything, I think "Keep it Kootenai County" is something that resonates more with me. I've lived here now for over 30 years. I moved here when I was younger to go to college at NIC, and when I graduated from North Idaho College, I just decided to stay here, and because I love Kootenai County. It's a fantastic place to live, to raise my kid, and now he's raising his daughter here.
Well, I'm glad that you're running for Kootenai County Sheriff.
Thanks.
That brings me to my next question. Why do you want to be Kootenai County Sheriff? County Sheriff. Yeah.
Well, I've invested a lot in the agency, having worked there for 28 years. It's quite a commitment to be a public servant to the community that you live in. And I've seen a lot change in the sheriff's office and certainly in the community with the growth that's been going on. And I know that we need to make some changes. I know that things have to happen because I know the culture of the agency, the culture of the community. I want to be able to make those changes thoughtfully, respectfully, with respect for both the agency, for the people that work there, and for the community. And I don't want to make changes that are just off a cliff, just for the sake of making those changes. So we need to move into this century, basically, in a lot of ways, and I think I'm the person that can take us there.
Well, what kind of changes would you consider making?
Well, we need to start looking at, the resources that we have, and the resources aren't meeting the population as the population's growing. Certainly, we haven't been able to keep up with the big boom in the growth in Kootenai County. So that's one thing, building up those resources, and whether those are personnel. A lot of our, we have inadequate space, and so the space needs are really important as far as building is concerned for our staff. So we don't have enough records people to process the records. We don't have enough driver's license people to get, make the driver's license for people. And we need law enforcement officers on the street.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And that was a good answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
What sets you apart from the other candidates running to become sheriff?
Well, besides being the one that has lived here this long and and worked in the agency for this long, I think that there are a lot of things that we have that are similar in nature as far as our outlooks, and I think that comes with the Republican ticket. But as far as the differences, I've got a continued education. I've got a master's degree from Gonzaga University in organizational leadership. I went to the FBI National Academy. I graduated from there in 2010, and as a female, that's a pretty important task. There aren't very many of us who have attended that academy, so it's quite an honor there too.
Yeah.
I think that there are things like that. Being a female is also something that is a difference.
Yeah.
I think it's not the reason that anyone should vote for me, certainly, but we do think differently. We respond to things differently, and And so I think that maybe it's time that we have female leadership in our community.
I agree. So this is building on top of your FBI training, which I just learned about a couple seconds ago when you told me. Do you know any super secret FBI secrets?
Any super secret? Well, if I did, I couldn't tell you.
That's correct. Are there any secrets that you can tell me that you haven't signed an NDA about?
No, there are not.
You heard it here. You heard it first here, folks. There are secrets.
There are. And
Okay.
she sticks to her integrity.
Okay. What would you say the county sheriff position entails?
Well, I mean, it's the head law enforcement for the county, and really the biggest thing is protecting and serving the community, and that protecting comes in the law enforcement aspect, but the service for the county sheriff comes in all of the other aspects of what the organization does. And you see patrol because they're out there flying the flag when they're driving the cars around, but you don't see all of the other people. And when you need help, you call 911. You get a dispatcher.
Yeah.
That person is serving you. When you go get your driver's license, that person is providing a service to you. Concealed weapons permits, records needs, the people that work in the jail when you have to go. Sometimes people end up in jail. Sometimes their loved ones are the ones that might show up to bond them out. So there are a lot of different things that we provide to the community, and those are the important tasks that we do every day.
Yeah. Why should people and teenagers who are good citizens be interested in the Kootenai County Sheriff election?
Well, I think it's good for anybody, especially if you're excited politically, to be in touch in the years before you're almost. It won't be very long, and you'll be able to be a voter. So having that want to understand what's going on in the community now is going to be important. A few years from now, when you're getting to make a check on a box for something that's important to you, you're going to have more understanding. I think it's important for people to want to have information, and I think that starting early is a great thing to do.
Yeah. Why? When did it first hit you that you wanted to run? What was the driving point that was oh, I want to run now?
That's nobody's asked me that before. So, I had a series of people, contacts that I know in the community, people that I work with in different nonprofits, and people that I work with at the sheriff's office. That would suggest it along the way. And, pretty soon, one person says it one day and you're like, oh yeah, that'd be interesting. And someone says it another day. And then pretty soon I started hearing it on a regular basis. And, it dawned on me that maybe if other people see that in me and think that that's something that they would like, then they're kind of telling me that that's what direction I should be taking. And so it just seemed like they were kind of mapping out that story for me a little bit, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so, I was following that track. Funny thing though, when I was going back to school after I got my AAS at NIC, I went back to LCSC, and I think it was 1996 or 7, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And I took an intro to criminal justice class, and my instructor was Wayne Longo, who's retired law enforcement locally here that was teaching the class. And he's one of my heroes. And he had us all write a paper about what you want to do with your career in law enforcement. And so I wrote this paper about what I want to do. And in the end, I said, who knows, maybe one day I'll be sheriff. And he made a little comment on the page, and on my grade, and you're going to do it. You're going to excel in your career. And so I don't know, I didn't really intend it when I wrote it, but it was just kind of funny when I came back across that paper. I still have that paper.
Look at that. She predicted her own prophecy.
Yes.
So now to a more serious topic. A question that seems to be, unfortunately, very consistent in our community is, in 2019, Idaho was the 5th highest suicide rate, 58% higher than the national average. Do you think that there's a direct answer to why Idaho's rate is so high?
I don't know that there's something that you can pinpoint. I know that we've been higher than that in the past too. I think years ago I did some research papers on the suicide levels in the country, and Idaho was number 2 at the time. Alaska was number 1, and which kind of makes sense a little bit, I guess, to the the dark for 6 months kind of thing and stuff. But I didn't really understand it, because to me, this is such a pristine place to live, and there's so much to do, and I don't know. I can't pinpoint it myself. I wish I could.
Yeah. Well, do you think there's any way that we could solve or try to solve this issue, or try to put in more effort to try to solve it? I don't know how to explain it, but do you think there's I don't know if there's a direct answer, but do you think there's a way that we could help kids that are thinking about suicide, and these young adults that are thinking about suicide, to prevent them? Because a lot of them, sometimes they don't even call the suicide prevention hotline.
Isn't that something? Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we're making a lot of strides and big headway in trying to provide resources. There's a at a certain age for kids that it seems like there aren't any resources, or at least that families aren't familiar with the resources that are available to that group, 13 to 18-ish or so. Department of Health and Welfare has great programs, youth empowerment services that help put families and kids that might have mental health issues, into good services. There's the Suicide Prevention Action Network of North Idaho, or they call it SPAN of North Idaho. That's a really good program that people can access. And the schools, not all of them, unfortunately, but many of the schools are starting to bring a program on that's called Sources of Strength. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, my school does have that.
Yeah, so I mean that helps and that's a peer program. So sometimes I think young adults and teens don't have a place or a person that they feel they can trust and they can go to with that kind of stuff. And sometimes that peer-to-peer contact, I mean, if you want to talk to somebody your age about your problems, I think that's a good place to go. So that Sources of Strength works first as a peer network, and then the peer leaders are trained to help put you in contact with a trusted adult. So I think the hard thing is that not everybody is aware that these programs exist, and they don't exist everywhere yet. So not all of the schools in Kootenai County have Sources of Strength program in them yet. I think they're working on that, but I sit on a board for children's mental health, and I know that there are a lot of things that are going on that we're trying to get out there and really help, especially that niche, like I said, that 13 to 18-year-old group that doesn't seem to have access, or they don't know where the resources are available. So hopefully we can, maybe even with this radio show, get some people will have knowledge that those programs are going on.
Yeah. A question that I asked Grimm and Mr. Whitehead was, do you think that there's a lot of books and there's a lot of news articles that are coming out, and they're written by adults, directed to adults, and I don't think that's really solving the problem, because when you see, if this one adult is writing an article about how we should prevent suicide in young teens, and then writing it directed towards adults, do you think that's really solving the problem, or do you think we need to focus more on the people who are actually doing suicide? Is that how you say it? Committing suicide? I don't know.
Yeah, or people that are having those thoughts or feelings anyway. I think it's good both ways, because the adults that are writing the books hopefully are people who have been researching a topic, have done surveys, and they're doing something with some kind of a method to where they can develop a program that they hope is helpful. And so that's a good thing. But I do agree that, even those surveys at the age groups that they need to be, so that you can get good information from the people that are affected, are really important to have too. So, I haven't looked to see how many books are geared towards the younger population, but that's an interesting thing to think about, that maybe people could start looking that direction.
Yeah. What do you think the biggest issue and the most severe issue in our community is?
Oh boy, definitely the mental health issues that we have, and I would say that it's co-combined with the opioid epidemic that we're seeing across the country. And sometimes those two things exist together, and sometimes the opioids cause some of the mental health issues that people have as well. So I think that it's a two-pronged issue that we need to deal with. So we have to start looking at what we can do to reduce and prevent harm from the use of opioids. And then we also need to start looking at what we can do to help with the people's mental health at all ages.
As sheriff, do you think there's any way that you could help prevent not prevent, but like help prevent the opioid crisis from continuing?
Well, certainly I could. As a captain right now at the sheriff's office, I sit on a board that works on the prevention of the harmful effects of opioids, and we are working on doing a multitude of different things for the community, drug take-back days, and doing some emphasis areas, making sure that all the police agencies in the area have drug take-back boxes available. I don't know if you're familiar with those, but if you have any kind of drugs, prescription drugs for anyone in your family or your dogs or your cat or something from the vet, you can take those in like at the sheriff's office lobby and put them in a big secure box, and they're destroyed monthly or whenever there's an amount that they need to destroy. But that way people can't have access to them if they're sitting in your cupboards. If someone in the family ends up injured and they have some pain pills and they just have them sitting in a cupboard for months, we already know that about 75% of the kids that start using opioid medication are getting them from someone that they know, typically from the household. And so that's a concern, and that's something that we really want to work on, is making sure we get the word out that those boxes exist for people to use.
Yeah, and I personally, I do think the it's hard to say it. Opioid
Then
crisis.
say Edmondson.
Come on.
They're both hard.
Opioid. I can't do it. Well, I think the opioid crisis is a really big issue in our community, and I don't know, and I think it's the same with suicide. I don't know if there's a direct way that we can go across it and like try to completely erase it, but I think there are ways that we can try to prevent it, and I think that the new sheriff should be ready to deal with those problems.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Some of the other ways we can work on that too is with the people that are addicted that go into our jail, and we can start providing programs to help them so that they can start recovering and connecting them. It's called continuity of care, connecting them with the people in the community, the resources that they can have. We'll start in the jail, and then we'll connect them with the people that will help them recover on the outside as well.
How long do they go to jail? How long do they go to jail for if you find like use of opioids?
Well, it depends on what the charge is, and if they're on them and they commit a minor crime, they might bond out pretty soon, and our average length of stay is somewhere between 17 and 19 days, and but someone might be there just for hours. But if they're there long enough for our medical team that works in the jail to be able to review where they're at and get them connected with someone in the community, that would be really helpful.
Yeah. Well, I agree. So recent studies show that a human brain stops developing between the ages of 23 and 35. In Idaho, you can own a gun at 18. Is this an appropriate age to own an assault weapon, in your opinion?
Well, by assault weapon, I'm assuming you mean like an AR-15, which so that whether or not that's an assault weapon. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
so firearms,
that's what I mean. Yeah,
in general, and I know I know 50-year-olds who are unsafe with firearms, and I know 10-year-olds like my granddaughter who is very safe with firearms. I wouldn't want kids running around with guns in general, but under supervision and with training, I think the training's really important. I think that it just depends on the person. It really does depend on the person, and so I recommend that everybody that's going to carry any kind of a firearm, whether it's a small pistol up to a high caliber hunting rifle, they all should be trained in not just, training about how to use a firearm, but how to use the specific firearm system that they're going to be carrying.
Yeah.
I think that's very important. But we do a multitude of other things that are based on age too, whether it's driving a car, all of those different things that you have access to once you're of age. So this is just one of them.
Yeah. Do you think there should be more extensive background checks, and if not, do you think there should be required training for people who for anyone?
For absolutely anyone to carry a gun?
Yeah.
No.
Training. For training.
I think that I think you should have training. And like if you go get a concealed weapons permit, it's mandatory that you have training. You have to have training to get the permit. And so that's a good thing where we are, doing those things right. But you can own a firearm without going through that training if you don't get that permit.
Yeah.
Like I said, I recommend that people do get the training. It's available around here, and people love to. Shooting sports are very, very popular here.
Yeah.
So, I think that the training itself is important, but also just the understanding the liability of owning a firearm too is important, and that training gives it to you, tells you all about the liability, criminally and civilly.
Yeah. So this might be the most important question that anyone's ever asked you, okay? The one that I'm going to ask. This question might, if you don't answer it correctly, who knows? You might not get any voters, okay? I don't know. What's your favorite type of pizza, and do you think pineapple belongs on pizza?
So, my new favorite, it's been my new favorite for about a year, is at the Flamin' Cork. They have it's called a spicy Hawaiian, and it does have pineapple on it with jalapenos.
Oh.
But on ZAG game nights, my granddaughter and I love to get Hawaiian pizza from Papa Murphy's with extra pineapple. So.
Good. That was the best answer I've heard so far. Like that might have been you just won.
Thank you.
You just won. Oh my
and
goodness.
It all came down to a pizza.
People are gonna be listening, and they're gonna skip to this part. They're gonna be like, "What did she say?" And I think you won. I think you won. Well, thank you guys for listening, and thank you for being on my podcast today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Luke. This was great.
Anyways, what was it? Okay, yeah. Thank you guys for listening. Please tune in eventually and listen to one or two or all of them. Have a good day. So, goodbye.